All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Today, we got some special guests on. Yes, and I said guests. We have Marc and Zac with Dueling Ground Distilling. It's distilling, right? Or distillery. Okay, distillery. We'll get it eventually, right? And they're going to talk to us about all the stuff that they're doing, all the really cool things. They were gracious enough to send over some samples, and we're going to go through a couple of those and kind of talk about their products, the way that they do things, and just basically BS over some good whiskey. So let's get into it. Without further ado, here's Marc and Zac.
Hello, how you doing?
We're doing really good. We're doing really good over here. So before we get too far into it, I want to get something into the glass because I've been sitting on these samples for a couple of days, and I've been itching to get into this because I think Zac might have brought a bottle to a whiskey somm class or something like that, but I don't remember it. So I will get into, and I'm gonna butcher this name, Linkumpinch. Nope, man, I messed it up already.
We're close. Just break it up. Yeah, the first.
Okay. Well, the 4-year-old bottled in bond. So if you want to tell us a little bit about this one, and then we'll get into you guys' backstory and all that stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, the bottled in bond is our workhorse, right? It's our flagship product. It's obviously bottled in bond, so it's 4 years old. It's 100 proof, and it's probably my best seller as far as just volume. Kind of started out life as before we were bottled in bond. That label, we were we sold some relatively young whiskey to kind of pay the light bills and keep things rolling for a little while, and then kind of worked our way up to the point where we had inventory and we could start moving over to the 4-year. I think the thing for me that the bottled in bond sort of signifies is I haven't even had much whiskey. I have never sourced any whiskey. I've always made it myself. Even if I had to sell it young, I made it myself. Even if I had to sell it as a moonshine before it was aged, I made it myself. And so, because the bottled in bond has specific requirements as far as, the origin of it, its age, all that sort of thing, it just kind of represented a milestone. So that's important to me. And it's the one I keep in my house all the time. It's the one I'm drinking right now. Awesome. That's the one I always have here. I always have some special bottles over there on the side, but I don't open many of those. I've got number one of a batch and stuff like that. I've got a bottle the governor signed at a festival that Zac and I were working. I'm never going to open that. This is kind of what I drink.
Absolutely. And I'm looking on here. It says it's a light toast level 3 char, which is pretty normally it's a heavier toast profile on most bourbons. Is that correct?
Yeah. There's a couple of things that are different about our mash bill. One is that I use 66% corn. It's kind of moving away from the sort of normal 80 sort of percent corn, 12%, 22% wheat, and 12% malted barley. So I've really upped my barley amount, and the idea is to get a little bit more complexity. The number 3 char for a craft whiskey that you're not going to have the time to really age that through. The 3 is a little bit more gentle to the spirit, and it doesn't get quite so pencily. You don't get that kind of woodiness. Right. And then when it turns the corner to 6 years, it's like, holy cow, it's great. Yeah.
Well, don't jump ahead too far, because we have a 6-year in here as well. So tell us a little bit, and Zac, feel free to chime in at any time. Those of you that have been following for a minute know that I talk about Zac and everything that he's doing. He's been sponsoring what we're doing over here, as well as being brand ambassador for this group. So I'm so excited for him to be on here and share his whiskey knowledge, because this dude knows his stuff, and I've already preached about him enough. But go ahead and give us a little background on why the name Dueling Ground. Why even do whiskey? Basically.
Sure. So I started out as a hobby beer brewer, and like a lot of guys, and I kind of found my way into it that way. And I started in 2013, so I was early in the craft scene when it was still just just kind of blowing up. So our area, our little location is right on the border of Kentucky and Tennessee. And because of that proximity, and of course, back in the 19th century, this was pretty much the frontier here. We had a reputation for hosting pistol duels. And the pistol duels were in a kind of a nebulous area where at that time, people weren't really sure where the border was, who had jurisdiction, all these kind of things. Dueling was clearly illegal in Tennessee, but not quite yet illegal in Kentucky, probably was, but there was no real law yet. And it was all the duels were fought at a place called Linkumpinch. So that's where the name Linkumpinch comes from, and the heritage, and that's why the double guns on the bottle, on my hat.
Right.
That's where the logos and stuff comes from. Sam Houston is our most famous duelist. Who fought a duel here, and actually he was caught bad mouthing, or he was bad mouthing the postmaster of Nashville, who happened to be a political enemy of Andrew Jackson. So Jackson was ascendant in those days. I'm actually reading a book right now that Jackson features heavily in that era, Jackson just settled a lot of disputes with a pistol. So it kind of ran around here. And then from here, Houston went down to Texas, but that's the heritage of the name.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I feel, and this is not a political show at all, but I feel if we settled a few more things with a couple of pistols, it'd probably help out a little more than it is.
It would be a little nicer.
It would be. You wouldn't be
shooting your mouth off so much.
No, that's true. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of my tasting notes. Not that you guys care, but on the nose, this thing is really nice. It's really it's not obviously being only 100. I say only 100 proof. Most people cringe at 100 proof, but at being 100 proof, it's really nice and soft on the nose. And then I'm getting that wheat come over. And my profile for wheat is maybe not different, but it's almost presents spicier than rye on the nose, which is kind of weird. But it's not like a normal rye spice. It's more like black pepper or something like that, which is really nice. And then on the palate, it's the same thing. It's soft. It's really delicate and balanced in the way that it comes across. And I love the higher malted barley content as well, because it gives it that little bit of backbone and a tiny touch of sweetness, which I think a lot of bourbons are lacking, is that sweetness, because you get the over tannic part, but you don't get that sweetness to back it up. And this one is hitting all the buttons. And this is only a 4-barrel batch. Is that correct?
Yeah, we keep it to 3 or 4 barrels. Yeah.
Okay.
And
cool.
I spent an awful lot of time on the White Dog, a couple of years, and the White Dog had to be good. The White Dog had to be good enough and sweet enough that it stands up on its own in a cocktail or on a sip. And then I felt more confident about going to the barrel. Right.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's really standing. I can't wait to compare it to some of the others, but it's really standing out, and it's very, it's very typical bourbon, but it's not typical Kentucky bourbon. I would think of it more of like a Tennessee bourbon, not Tennessee whiskey, but like a Tennessee bourbon. I just had Old Dominic on from Memphis, and I got a sample of their stuff, and it's the flavor profile is very similar to that. And also maybe even some, I wouldn't say Texas, but maybe even some Colorado, bourbons that are out there. Just a little lighter profile, not so over oaked and over wooded. It's really singing to me. So what? When you guys are, how, I guess let me start that over. Whenever you guys are doing a run or a distillation run, about how much are you getting out? Like basically your still size, or if you can talk about that. If you can, I totally understand. But what are we running?
We're a pot still whiskey, which is part of what makes that unique flavor. Whereas a lot of Kentucky whiskeys are column stills. Nothing wrong with either one, but we decided to be pot still guys. Mm-hmm. And we turn about 400 gallons of mash into a barrel of whiskey.
Okay.
So depending on how much mash we're processing in any given time period, We're doing a barrel right now. We kind of slowed our production down a little bit, like a lot of people have, just to kind of see how things go. But we're sitting on a nice inventory now. I've been at it long enough now that we've gotten some good stock, probably 500-600 barrels in the warehouse, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for a small brand, it's plenty.
Right.
And so we're just kind of like, okay, we can kind of ease up for a minute, but we have the capacity to hold around 3,000 gallons of mash.
Okay.
We just installed 1,000-gallon stripping still, pot still. We haven't even fired it up yet. We just got it all finished, installed here recently. And everything's low and slow. So I think that's a big part of the profile.
Yeah. It really is. It really is.
So something that I really enjoy about kind of the process here is that it's, you'll hear about it when it gets really nerdy for whiskey people, is the concept of on grain. So there's on grain, there's off grain. What you hear about more is in the fermentation style. It's that after you've done the cook, you can have the choice of, do you lauter it out? Do you just take the kind of sugary liquid, or do you pump everything, grains and all, into the fermenters? Well, not only do we do on grain fermentation, we also do on grain distillation. So all that goes into the still as well. And the longer that grain stays there, those oils just interact even more, creams so much more flavor going in at the end of the day.
That's true.
And it's a sweet mash too.
Sweet mash. Okay. That because that makes a difference, doesn't it? Because we had Brian with Hard Truth on, and he does sweet mash as well. And he's like, they tried it with with the sour mash process, and they just like the sweet mash better. Some people swear by sour mash, right? Obviously the big guys, that's what they do. Everything's sour mash. But what was the reasoning behind the sweet mash as composed to the sour mash?
Well, the sour mash is a great process from back in the early days when they started with all this stuff, before they had the level of sanitation and technology that we have today available to us to be able to sterilize everything. And the sour mash puts the pH, and Zach, you can fill me in, I can't remember if it's low or high or what, but it puts it in such a place where infection is less of an issue. Okay, so that's kind of why it was invented, and it's very efficient. We didn't do it because we were working on a 25-gallon little electric pot still from Hillbilly Stills to develop everything. And if I was lucky, I was running once a week, right? So I didn't have the facility to hold the sour mash over and not have it just get rancid. So it was like we just by default started doing sweet mash. And again, there's a lot of happy accidents in this stuff, and it was just like that just turned out to be a profile that I really liked. And it's kind of the same with us. We're still in the the clear spirit, the white dog, but it was like one just tasted better to me than the other. And whether that's just because that's what I got used to or whatever, but that's what you're tasting here.
Yeah. And I think it does make a difference. And it's obviously personal preference, right? That all biases aside, it's personal preference on how you want to do it, because there's some great sour mash whiskeys out there. But to me, from the sweet mashes that I've had, you can taste a difference in it. And I can't really pinpoint what it is. The only thing it makes me think of is it's more lively, it's more vibrant. Whereas some of the other stuff is a little more muted. And that might just be my personal opinion, but like, I think it's really cool because, going against kind of the norms that everybody throws out there, is one of the things that makes whiskey fun and intriguing. Is kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit and saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this. And no, we're going to only do 60%, 66% corn, so just all these small things that you're doing really can kind of set yourself apart from some of the other distilleries out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think another thing that's unique, not necessarily unique to us, because I'm sure a lot of people do it this way, but I just try to buy and source local as much as I possibly can. My whole philosophy is, if I've got to spend money, I'd rather spend it with my neighbors, right? Keep the money in my community. So I buy all my grains from one family farm. We have our barley malted in Cynthiana by a friend who has a malting business. Our yeast and enzymes are Kentucky. Our barrels are Kentucky. I get my T-shirts printed locally. I mean, just we go out and we try to do like combine products with different people. Like this guy does coffee roasting, so let's work with him. This person does candles, so let's work with them. And some products work better than others, but as much as possible, we try to source local. We're doing a pretty big install right now, at least for us, and I tried to use I did use all local, pipe fitters and stuff. Believe it or not, in Little Franklin, Kentucky, we have those resources. But I used, just again, spend it. If I spend money at their place, chances are they're going to come down to my place and buy bottles and eat pizza.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm ready to get into this next one, and Zach, let me know if I'm getting off kilter. Let's go to the 5-year next. That way it's 4 or 5. And this one is the Kentucky Bourbon Festival pick. So tell us a little bit about this one. We are jumping up in proof a little bit. It's a lot of it, 117.5. So tell us a little bit about the thought behind this one. Obviously it's a year older as well, but tell us a little bit about this one as well.
Go ahead, Zach.
So in addition to the bottle and bond, of course, our core line, the bottle and bond, and then a 4-year single barrel cask strength. And we do a lot of other kind of releases, and we're starting to get some older stuff more consistently on the shelf too. So we went to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival last year, participated in all the days. And part of that was the festival committee did a pick. So they selected one of our 5 years. It's barrel 155, still that char 3, 53-gallon barrel. Like you said, 117.5 proof. And just that extra year does make all the difference sometimes. Age doesn't necessarily mean it's better, but it does mean it's going to be different.
And it definitely is. Just on the nose already, it's a little richer, a little darker in its profile. It's the same mash bill and everything. Okay, yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure. So
yeah, with as little as we make, and figured it was better to sort of focus on one mash bill and try to do a good job with it. And
absolutely.
As time goes by, we can get into doing more stuff.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean it's really. I have the other sample right here. I'm going to go back and forth. Sorry, guys. But yeah, whereas this one is lighter and a little, I say zesty, but you know what I mean? Like almost effervescent in the nose. This one has a little bit darker note to it. I can't really pinpoint what it is. It's almost like maybe even a plum or something like that, which it's getting some dark fruit, which it's obviously not finished or anything, but it's getting some of those darker fruit notes, which is really nice. So tell us about the Bourbon Festival, because I'm from Texas, and here real soon we're going to be having not only the Texas Whiskey Festival, which is our biggest festival around here, but we're also Whiskey Riot is coming here to Houston, and that one's a big one because they have like over 200 different distilleries and brands that'll be there, whereas the Texas Whiskey Festival is just Texas whiskeys, obviously. Tell us a little bit about going, because I've never been to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, obviously. But tell us a little bit about being there, but not only as a vendor, but like just the whole gamut of that, if you can.
Zach, go ahead, man. Because it was both for both of us. It was our first year, but he got to go as a spectator. He was a participant, and then a worker, and then a spectator. So
that's awesome.
It was a great time. Is it a 4-day event overall total, or was it just 3?
It wound up. It's over 4 days. Yeah.
Okay, yes. So it was over 4 days. The first night itself was nice because it was kind of that little mini private event for VIPs to come in, have some dinner, and then be able to tour around and sample in a little bit smaller venue. So with it, they did a really good job throughout the whole festival, in my opinion, that they had all the craft guys in one area, so it wasn't kind of as separated. And so with that, you got to be able to see the good majority of the distilleries in the state. The rule for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, as I understood it, was you had to at least produce something that was from Kentucky. So there was a tent that did have a few other distillers from out of the state, but they all had a Kentucky product of some sort. But I spent the majority of the time on the craft side just because it was so cool seeing the experimentation that happens. My favorite thing about the whiskey industry is there really doesn't seem to be a sense of competition. Rising tide raises all boats. We're all friends with each other. We're willing to, swap stories, swap recipes, talk business. It's always a great time. The Bourbon Festival itself, just because they'll have, the people who work the distilleries there. Not everybody brings just brand reps. So you get to talk one-on-one about what they're doing and why they do it and, what's great about it. Of course, a big draw for the festival is that a lot of distilleries will have private barrels that are just there for the festival. We did that, and several other craft distillers had a unique single barrel. Some of the bigger guys will have, that'll be when they unveil a new release of something that may not be on the shelves yet. So there's always something there, and so it's a great time overall. Thankfully, at least from what I saw, no one got too crazy. That's always the danger when you have a day of handing out samples, but it seems like for the most part, everybody did well.
I saw a few rowdies. There's a few times where people were like, I was like, dude, you need to go to the house. Now.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you see that everywhere. I mean, as whiskey people, we know that like you can take it too far pretty fast, especially when you start getting into cask strength whiskeys. And, if it's warm outside and you're walking around, not drinking water, sweating, doing all the things, it can get to you pretty fast. But, some of these people, I feel like they're there just to get shit-faced, and they're just like there to make a ruckus, and you're like, come on, man, we're all trying to have a good time, and you're making all of us look bad because you're over there puking in the bushes now. But it sounds like a lot of fun.
The Bourbon Festival was pretty tame by comparison to most places. I've been to some of those where they have these like giant punch cards, and people are, you get a punch every time you do a sample, and there are people whose mission it is to like just go get as many punches as they can, and there's almost always police involved somewhere toward the end of the night. There's one in particular, I'm not going to name it, but it's kind of like it's always a S show, and that a lot of times on the ones that are real drinking fest, like the Bourbon Festival is more about acquiring bottles, talking to the distillers. It's definitely a good part of the culture, but there's ones that are just like they're just there to get drunk. And I try not to do those. Like as soon as I figure out that that's one of those, I just like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to participate in that kind of crap.
Right. Exactly. We're not 21 out there, on Bourbon Street. I wish I was sometimes, but we're not. I mean, Zach is. Zach barely turned 21 yesterday, so
yeah, he's bugged.
I'm older than that
No,
now.
it's to me, it's I don't know. It kind of gives the whole scene a bad rap when you have those people like that. But at the same time, most of the people are like, yeah, that's them, because we all have those people in our family, we are close friends that are like, when you get around them, you got to watch out because they go crazy real fast. So I mean, you just got to kind of weigh that in there. But I will tell you, doing a side by side between the bottled and bond and the 5-year. I mean, they are very similar. Obviously, there's a lot of similar notes. I like the vibrantness of the bottled and bond, and I think I'm leaning more towards that. But the little bit of higher proof on this one, I'm not a proof hound. Don't get me, but the little bit of higher proof on this one is really singing to me tonight. Obviously, it's all about set and setting, right? It's all about all those things, but yeah, this one for me tonight is really hitting. So let's, Zach, why don't you take this one over? Let's talk about a little bit about what you do for Dueling Grounds.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So my official title is head mixologist and brand ambassador. So something that I love about the craft whiskey industry in Kentucky is that the majority of the smaller guys, in addition to being a distillery, they may also have a bar. Dueling Grounds is very good at that. That we have we're open 7 days a week, and we have a bar that entire time. We don't do bar hours. We're 10 to 6, and on Sundays we're 2 to 6. Let the church crowd go through and not interfere with them. But then in the afternoons, if they want to come drink, we welcome them with open arms.
Yep.
So with that, from 2 to 6, we do a really good cocktail menu. Something I'm personally proud of is that every Sunday there's always 4 new drinks.
Oh, wow.
We've done that for over 3 years and have not repeated a single cocktail. So there's always something new to try when people come in, and it's a great time.
So you said what you just said, and now you have to explain. You did it for 3 years and didn't repeat one drink. Like, what kind of madman are you over here creating 4 drinks every Sunday for 3 years and not like? I'd be mixing everybody old fashions by the end of it. And I'm just like, here you go, just get out of here. Well, how? I mean, obviously, it's changing a liquor because obviously y'all don't just do bourbon. Y'all are all around doing everything. So, and then that can lead into that question about the other brands that y'all guys have. But like, how do you come up with that? And if you can't tell me, I understand trade secrets. I don't want to get into those. But like, how do you come up with the curation of that? Because like that to me, that's super daunting to me. Obviously I don't make cocktails, but that's super daunting to me.
No, that's kind of just my fun thing I enjoy doing. Of course, we're both whiskey somms. We've gone through the marketing school at Wizard Academy. That's phenomenal. In addition to that, I've studied whiskey and cocktails anywhere and everywhere. I've WSET certified. I've gone through various other mixologist classes and everything else. When you really break it down on making a good drink, there's only really 4, maybe 5 types of cocktails you can even make. Spirit forwards like your old fashions and Manhattans, your short sours like your daiquiris that have a spirit and citrus, your long sours that will generally employ some kind of soda like a Tom Collins, or your highballs, which are basically just alcohol and soda. And then arguably there's a 5th category where you talk about cream and other stuff like that. So when you look at it from that aspect, and then you're trying to create a balanced drink, something not overly sweet, not we're not that college bar where it's just a syrup and soda and a little bit of alcohol. We try to make a good quality balanced drink. So you kind of look, if you're going into one of these 4 or 5 cocktail styles, there's only so many ways you can really change up in terms of proportions, but the world is your oyster in terms of what ingredients you want to use.
Right.
We're lucky at Dueling Grounds that in addition to the bourbon, we make gin, 4 different fruit liqueurs, an apple pie, and of course we also have the clear on the shelf, our new make. So I will say the new make does really good at being in place of some vodka and some tequila style cocktails every now and then. It makes a killer margarita. But of course, we also, being a full bar, we have access to other spirits, any kind of mixers we want to mess with, stuff like that. So it's just kind of the fun of it is that cocktail making can be anywhere from, hey, this tastes good together, to I'm going to break out the beakers and chemistry sets and see what happens. So it's just kind of a way to enjoy it.
Yeah, Kentucky's unique in the fact that we can hold a traditional bar license.
Right.
So as a distillery, so I mean, a lot of states allow you to make cocktails with your spirit, but we can basically bring in anything.
Oh,
so
wow.
What it does for us is it changes the way we can make money and interact. So we can have our Sunday event that we have every Sunday, and but not everybody is going to want one of those 5 cocktails. Some people want a beer, some people want a wine, people want a little food. So it gives us a little bit more movement in there to do things. Also for events. When we first opened in 2016, we didn't have whiskey on the shelf yet. So we were, and I was only going to sell what I made. So the cocktails and like whiskey pours from other distilleries, because it was early enough that we could get a lot of cool stuff back in the day. We opened pretty much as Franklin's one and only bourbon bar. And that helped us really find the people who would eventually become our long-term customers. The Sunday event that Zach's talking about, that we started that in 2016, and there's been, I think, 4 different lead bartenders on that project, and everyone brings a different style to it. Yeah. Everything brings everything. I think nobody's ever brought quite the level of research and really like crafting the cocktail than Zach. It's obviously he takes it very seriously. And my customers love that, and it gives people Sundays has slowly morphed into this thing where it's like it's a really cool place for locals, and people make it. It's kind of an appointment to come and see us on Sundays.
That is really.
Yeah, we've got a really great group of regulars that have dubbed themselves, or we've dubbed them. I don't know who gave them the name, but they call themselves the Linkumpinch, which works out really great.
That's funny. That's funny. And I will tell you, knowing Zac personally, he is a perfectionist in what he does. And I know that he's not going to put a product out that's not 100% the way he wants it. And if he's on a schedule, he might put something he's never going to say it, but he's like, oh man, I should have tweaked that a little bit, but he'll put it out. But yeah, no, he's having him on the team, I'm sure has been a blessing, because the research that this man does, I try and post all of his research, because I'm just like, I don't even know that. Where'd you find that? Like, like it's really cool to have that he can nerd out when you need to nerd out, but like he also does really cool crafty cocktails as well, which is like something that, you could sell to your little sister who just turned 21. She doesn't have to have some complex, thing.
Right.
She can just, we can just go from there.
Exactly. Usually on Thursdays, the menu rolls out and it's posted on all our socials so people can kind of check it out. And even if you can't come see us, you can, we're pretty transparent, here's the ingredients, here's what it is. You can mess around with the proportions and try to figure it out, make it happy. And then we also, this last year, we started having specific food offerings that change Sunday to Sunday. So we'll usually have like Zac and Chloe will talk a little bit, and Chloe will try to match a pizza to one of the cocktails that he's doing. So there's like a little pairing. It's not a perfect pairing, obviously.
Right.
But it's just like something. Again, it's something unique to that day. People come in, and it's something you can't get the rest of the week.
Yeah, that's super cool. And it's making it a community event. You guys have been doing this long enough now to where you're like, oh, people know, hey, Sunday afternoon, let's go over there. We're going to have a good pizza. We'll have a drink, and, then we'll go take a nap or, whatever in the afternoon. So yeah, no, it's really cool. And it's all about that community aspect, because like, that's what, that's not what whiskey was made for, but like, that's what I think it was made for. Sit around with a bottle, you're sitting around the fire, you're having good story, having good conversation, and it just starts flowing, and it really shows, it really tells a story for everything. You can have the best whiskey with the worst friends, and it's the worst whiskey, but you can have the worst whiskey with the best friends, and it's the best time of your life. So, put more ice, you'll be fine. No. Okay. So let's move on to the 6 year. And this one to me is, I'm really excited about this one, because this one has a special story behind it. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, I started my journey, got my license in 2013, and it took several years to get a few barrels put up. So 6 years ago on Repeal Day, we barreled barrels 99 and 100.
Wow.
And we had a party, and we had kind of fun with it and everything. And everybody signed the barrels, and we put those barrels away. And they came up at a 4 year, and we're like, nah, let's leave them in there for a little while longer. We came up 5 years, nah, let's leave them in there for a little while. 6 years, like, yeah, now's the time to do it. So what we did, it was kind of fun, is we, this is just, I have a lot of harebrained ideas, and this was a good one, was we took those 2 barrels, we had brought them back from the warehouse, and they were sitting in the building. And so we're going to dump those on the morning of Repeal Day at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
We'll blend the 2 of them together and we're going to tweak the proof. I think we tweaked the proof just a little, just to get it where we wanted, because it felt a little hot. And when we experimented, and we had a local bourbon club that came in, and Southern Kentucky Bourbon Society. And they volunteered. We fed them. We kind of did the whole bottling party thing. We got it all in glass and on the shelf that day by lunch.
That is awesome.
And put it on sale and sold a lot that day.
I'm sure.
So, and it just kind of cool story. We'll talk about the flavor here in a minute, but yeah, I like it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and having a cool story. I mean, that is part of it. That is the epitome of whiskey, right? Like having that cool story to go with it. Now were these full size barrels
Yeah.
or okay? I just making sure. So you're talking, you're not getting a whole lot of bottles out of it. So there's a pretty limited release, and I thank you guys so much for sending over this sample. But yeah, no, I mean, and I don't know if we're ready to get into tasting notes on it or not, but this basically takes the two that we've had before and just ramps it up that much more, and just kind of gives it that much more. I'm going to say this word, and this might get me banned, but it's voluptuous, almost. It's like, what is it? What is her name on Who Framed Roger Rabbit? It's like, it's the
Jessica Rabbit.
Jessica Rabbit. Yeah.
Bourbon?
It's a Jessica Rabbit of bourbon.
I'll take
Absolutely.
that. I'll take that. It's damn sexy is what it is.
It's pretty sexy. I'm not going to lie. Not going to lie.
And just on the color difference is just, two years of difference is there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this one is dark as can be.
Like spectacular. Yeah.
It's spectacular. And the nose is presenting now you're getting that like almost leather, that pipe tobacco, that stuff you would expect from those older age statements, but it's not wood heavy. And that's something that I'm seeing through you guys' profile. It's just not super wood heavy, which, there's a lot of brands out there, and I'm going to call one out, but I mean, I'm not saying they're bad, but Elijah Craig, like if you get their barrel strength or whatever you call it, to me, it's very oak heavy, and it's not bad. It's just almost like I feel like you're a beaver eating a piece of wood, whereas this is a little bit more delicate on the wood profile, and it's giving more of that deep wood sugar instead of just throwing tannins in your face.
It brings this, when you don't have all of that oak impact, yet it's still there. You bring in forth what the grains can provide you. And so with this, the wheat just shows up so much in the idea of this beautiful, like dark cherries and syrup with some tiny hint of chocolate from that malt.
Yep.
Like
it is what I want most bourbons to smell like, for sure. And it delivers on the taste as well. It really does. It washes the palate really well. It sits in the mid palate for a while, and then it's giving you the vanillas, the caramels, like you get from a barrel, all those bourbony notes. But then it does have, one of the other notes I get from wheat is like whoppers or like malt balls. I get that sometimes, where it's like that chocolate covered, like and I'm getting that on this one especially. It's really nice. It's really coming through. Yeah, man, amazing stuff. Thank y'all.
I haven't seen anyone come into the distillery and try this that didn't walk away with a bottle, so it's gone well.
Yeah. I can see why.
Yeah,
I can see why.
It's kind of it's a bit of a kickoff, right? Because I'm always evolving my line, figuring out what I'm going to put my emphasis on, and we're coming into a tranche of 6-year-old. And I don't expect to sell all of it. I expect some of it to get to 7 and 8-year-old, but it's going to be nice. I think that I'll be able to keep a high-end 6-year-old on the shelf all the time. As this one runs out, we can go in and pick out another. But we got just enough of that kind of quantity and stuff coming up behind it, so to kind of keep the pipeline full. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
So that leads me to my next question. Like, how are y'all dealing with distribution, and how has distribution been since you started obviously only selling what you could make and all of that? So I'm guessing you started out just distillery only and all that. How has distribution evolved through the years?
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough game, man.
It is.
Even if I have a couple good distributors in Kentucky and Tennessee that I like. But even if you get on the shelf, there's got to be some way to pull through. And if people are out looking for unique bourbons, then, you can be there. A lot of it has to do with that retail store clerk that you're talking to who knows you, what you like. And they're like, hey, I got something just for you. So that's very much hand selling, kind of one-to-one sort of thing. I do feel like I got pretty lucky with my Kentucky distributor, and they've been really great to work with. And I really wanted to do well in the home market. But our long-term future is direct to consumer. I mean, that's just the way it's going to work.
Right.
I would love to be in Texas. I spent time down in Texas.
Get over here.
Yeah, but I just can't find a distributor to even talk to me. So, okay.
Yeah, I know.
And so our future as a craft industry is direct to consumer, and I'm hoping that some of these kind of woes that are out there right now that are going on in the bourbon industry, and people are talking about the craft guys getting hurt and everything. Maybe that spurs on some more evolution in direct to consumer legislation. Yes. Kentucky's had it for a few years. New York is now opening up, which is a big deal. You need those tentpole states: New York, California, Texas. So once they buy in, then the other folks kind of start to buy in. So and distribution, if you're distributing a lot, you need to have somebody to go into the stores and do tastings and do that kind of stuff. If I get into a store and do tastings, I sell bottles.
Yep.
I went up to Lexington not that long ago. I was on a sales trip. The owner there was like, "Yeah, I ordered this in 6 months ago, a year ago, and it hasn't sold a damn bottle." And he was kind of pissed at me. And I said, "Look, I'll come back. I'll be back." And he had a couple cases, and I made it my mission. I sold every damn bottle he had.
Absolutely.
It was like, but it's hand-to-hand combat out there, So the direct to consumer piece is I think where it's at. We have our tasting room in Franklin, which is adjacent to Nashville, about 40 minutes away. We're opening another tasting room in Cave City, which is the gateway to Mammoth Cave National Park.
Okay.
We're actually looking to make that a little epicenter of distilleries there. I've got conversations with a couple other companies, encouraging them to maybe open up satellite operations there and stuff, and make it kind of that little mini, mountainy retreat kind of thing. We'll do some moonshines and stuff as well. But people come to Kentucky and want to drink whiskey. They want bourbon, right? So it'll be a very bourbon experience. I'm putting more of my faith and effort into direct to consumer endeavors than anything. We're actually getting ready to reveal a new web store that's all built for e-commerce. So whenever we get into your area, we can. And then we partner with Sealbox as well.
Okay.
And cool. Sealbox gets us into Texas. Sealbox gets us into a lot of places. I don't get as much data feedback. I don't have much control of it there.
Right.
But I think I fit their profile as far as being craft and kind of what they're looked for. And I'm really grateful to have that relationship.
Yeah. Yes. They're doing some cool stuff, and they're getting the craft crowd out to the major consumers, and it's really helped a lot of brands, which is what you want. And ever since COVID, everybody was just ordering online, and they were getting what they could get. And then people like Sealbox and Bourbon Outfitters and all of these other ones, they came out and they were like, "Here, we can ship it to you just as well." So I feel like in the future, and I don't know, I'm not a market research analyst like Zac, obviously, but I know that in the future, it's going to be more and more direct to consumer, to where I can go on your website, it skews onto your computer at the distillery, and you can ship it directly to my house from your distillery, therefore cutting out that middleman. Obviously, you might have to pay a little more tax on it or something like that, but that's what I would like to see, because there's some distilleries out there that I really want to get a sample or a bottle or whatever from. And they're like, "Bro, we can't even get to you. We'd have to do a backdoor transfer or whatever. You got to pay extra money for that type thing." Where it shouldn't be like that. If I want to support you guys, I should be able to go to your website, click the link, and buy a bottle and be able to get it and not have to worry about the bureaucracy of it and stuff like that. But then we start getting, again, into politics and into things like that, which I don't get into.
Politics is fine as long as you understand that it's a game, right? And you have to play that game, right?
Yes.
So the way it worked in Kentucky is we have the Kentucky Distillers Association. So we have a very strong trade association because of the size of our business. But you have guilds and associations in Texas. You have a statewide, Distillers Association, I'm sure. Yep. And they engage with the legislature to create and they made the case. It's like, this is why this will be good for Texas distilleries. And Kentucky's law is already set up this way. New York's law is set up this way. If you're a state that is reciprocal, then you're going to be able to ship to them. So as long as New York can ship to here, I can ship to there, we're good. We're going to get in business together. Same thing needs to happen with Texas. It's like, it's going to have to happen with the Texas distillers. They're going to have to get together and say, we want to ship our products to other reciprocal states, but we need this law in place. And the Kentucky Distillers Association has resources and people who will help you write the language. This is what the law should say. This is how it will work. And can help you with economic data and things like that. But it's going to have to come from your folks wanting to engage with the rest of the world. And it opens you up, because then, okay, it's like, all right, well, now you're not the only game in town, because now we're going to send stuff down there too.
Right.
Zach said earlier, rising tide, right? The more people we get into craft whiskey, the better. And especially now at a time where there's a lot of source juice, celebrity juice, crazy hoops juice. Recognizing who is a legitimate craft distiller and trying to support them and support each other is really important.
Yeah. And I've talked about this a million times, but I have no problem with somebody being a non-distilling producer. The fact to me is the transparency of it, and the fact that you tell me, now I don't need to know what barrel you got and all that, but like, there are so many people out there that are just buying Barton or whatever and slapping another label on it, and guess what? They get shelf space, because they have the marketing team to back it up, and they're literally just turning over barrels left and right. Now, where's the craft in that? There's absolutely zero craft in it. Now, there are some that are doing cool finishing projects and stuff like that. That's a little bit different. There's blending houses and stuff like that. But like, it really takes away from the whole whiskey scene, and it takes the shelf space as well. Because if you guys would be distributed in, say, a Total Wine or a Specs around here, there's not enough shelf space for anybody. I mean, we can't even get Texas whiskey in Texas. I have to go directly to the distillery because it's cram packed with Jim Beam and Jack Daniels, which, again, not poo-pooing their marketing strategy, because it does something right. But when you have 15 SKUs of the same whiskey, just with a different finish or whatever, it's like, come on, guys, like let's get some other people in here to play along with this game as well. I don't know. It really hurts my heart, because my heart is in craft. I love everything that the craft guys are doing. You guys, everybody who comes on here, basically, because, Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, Wild Turkey, they're not going to return my email. So, it's one of those things. But at the same time, yeah, exactly. I get to talk to their guy who sweeps the floor or something. If I did talk to somebody
within that space, though, within the sourced juice, let's say, space, is a segment that really is interesting to me, and I'm going to kind of pitch it to Zach here in a second. Is the independent bottler? It's a concept that comes more from the European model, where in Ireland, or Scotland, where people that's their job, and they go and they source the best barrels and they blend it or they do whatever. I think that's where some excitement exists for me in that world. And Zach, you intersect way more of that juice than I do.
Yeah, it's this beautiful industry that's, there's a lot of whiskey out there that, does not go into the bottle of the distillery that made it. Simple as that. There's contract distillers out there that's their sole job. Then there's there's big guys, or even on the craft side, there's barrels that sometimes maybe are even off profile or are not bad, but different and unique. And there's markets for people who like that different and unique. So it's one of those where they can come into a distillery. We have a couple people who've even done that with Dueling Grounds. Don't know how much we can say about that, but that they bought our barrels to release their own label, and it's great stuff still. So
I have no non-disclosure clauses. So we worked for quite a while with Barrel Global, and they're buying new fills from me, and then they like a lot of people, they have paused their new fill stuff. Just the virus that's going around right now in our business.
Right. Yeah.
But they still continue to like source a barrel here and there, be it for a private blend or that kind of stuff. But where I'm really interested in finding the creative, artistic people that want to come and work with me and my friends over here. And we're like, I would love for somebody to want to get everything together and just like want to put together a special Kentucky blend from all of us, that's like unique to their thing.
Yeah.
And the licensing and the architecture is easy, right? Any one of us can bottle it and do that kind of stuff. But just the idea of, and I'm taking 3 Kentucky barrels and I've got this barrel I got from California. We're going to, and it's going to be perfect. And so it's like, I want to encourage that kind of creativity, I think, because I think that's better. We don't need any more celebrity brands. We don't need venture capital money. As a matter of fact, with this kind of downturn right now, you're seeing a lot of the VC folks just running for the doors, which to me is like,
absolutely,
just get out.
Yeah.
We don't need
exactly.
We don't need you here.
Absolutely. And
people who are creating a consistent brand, the consistent quality, they're going to stay around. The demand for whiskey is still there. That's not dying out. We're not going back to the 1950s to 60s, where you couldn't give it away. People who like whiskey are still going to like it. So I think that's the big thing is if you're willing to stay on the shelf, if you have a longevity plan, you're going to be doing fine.
And consistency to just that is not always the goal, right?
No.
I mean, I think that's part of the fun of the smaller houses is, that special couple barrels that maybe 10 years from now, everybody's going to be saying your Repeal Day blend was the best shit I've ever had, I can't do it anymore. And it's like, that's awesome. That's the kind of like storyline, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's just like, that's the kind of thing you want people take ownership in what you're doing. And it's like, they'll do the work for you. You just let it roll. You just got to make good juice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So while we were talking about that, and I have a comment that I can talk about this as well. I opened up our last sample, and this one we saved for last because I feel like this one is special to all of us. This is your 7-year, 108 proof, and it says barrel 2. Tell me about this. I only poured a very small amount because I want to be able to enjoy this. So please tell us about this because I feel honored to even be sitting with this right now.
All right. Well, so I got my license in 2013. I still have a 25-gallon hillbilly still that has a heating element into it. And if you know anything about doing bourbon, if you leave the grain in the mash, it will burn that heating element out. So we had to filter it. Filtering corn mash out of a wash is one of the damn hardest things I've ever tried to do because corn doesn't want to give up the moisture. So we would make this mash and get a fraction of what we mashed in out of it, and then we'd run it on this little 25-gallon still. I did 6 barrels that way. That 6 barrels probably took me 2.5 years to make those barrels.
Oh my gosh.
It was the learning process. It was okay, we have to, we're going to put in the time to learn how to do this. And I had ordered my equipment, and it was the days when things were really backed up. So I had to wait for a while for it. So it was like, I could run this little still and kind of get going. And, they were in 25-gallon barrels, which is the other thing that's kind of unique. Now, these are 25-gallon char 4 barrels. It's like the first things we did. And we didn't know crap about barrel storage or anything. So during that evolution, we struck up a relationship with Wilderness Trail, with Pat and Dane that run Wilderness Trail, and became friends with them. And they were mentors to us. And they basically were like, look, man, and they store our whiskey. All of our whiskey is stored at Wilderness Trail. So we have good professional warehousing. And they were like, dudes, we don't like 25-gallon barrels. There's just this, it's like difficult for us to hold these things. Our racks are set up for 53s. And of course, the price point on a 53 is about the same as a 26. There's no real savings to doing the 26. But there was this whole thing, especially back in the early days, where if you get the small barrel, it'll age quicker and it'll have more. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but it's still a 2 or 3 year whiskey. So you know, the date doesn't lie. So I kind of made a decision after these first 6 that I was going to move to the 53. So all of a sudden I had these 6 25-gallon, 23, 26-gallon barrels. And it's like, well, what am I going to do with these? And they're probably the most expensive whiskey ever made in the state of Kentucky because I was doing it. I had somebody helping me. I had a day job, so I had somebody helping me that I was paying, and to do the process parts. And it was like, we're going to need to do something with this, right? So it was an anomaly. So I created this thing I call the Founders Club.
Okay.
The Founders Club is this. The total of the Founders Club is 6 barrels, 6 25-gallon barrels. That's all we did. And we put out barrel 1 to announce the arrival of 4-year-old whiskey. We put out barrel 1. And then we put out barrel 2 a few years later as the 7-year-old, 3 years later as a 7-year-old. The whole concept behind the Founders Club, because this was so expensive and it's difficult to make, was that 100% of the money that we would bring in from the Founders Club editions would go toward our equipment, paying for our equipment.
Love that.
The first one paid off my baby still, my regular still that I'm using.
Mm-hmm.
The second one helped pay for my boiler that I'm using right now, because that was a big jump for us to go from electric to steam. And I will tell you now that the last 4 barrels are all a little over 8 years old. And we're strategizing those as a blend, because at 8 years in a small barrel, we need to get these things out of the wood.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Soon. So we're going to get these out of the wood. We're going to blend them together. We'll see whether we need to proof them or what we need to do. But those are going to come out this year as either 8.5 or maybe even 9 year if I decide to wait till July. And that's the close of the Founders Club. The reason we're doing it is because we just installed 1,000-gallon still. We just installed all the steam piping to go with that. We're about to have to install a bunch of cooling equipment. So I've got a fairly big line of credit right now, and I want to beat that sucker down a little bit.
Amen.
So we're going to put those whiskeys out, and that will close out the Founders Club. So the first 6 barrels. So that's what you're tasting. So similar mash bill, but different aging profile entirely.
Yeah. No, and I will tell you right now, it smells and tastes not completely different because the baseline is still there, but this one to me is like right off the nose. I got like, you ever had a Twix where there's like the caramel and chocolate and all that? I got that, but it was almost like you stuck a torch on it, and it was like almost like that graham cracker was kind of crusty, or I would even say s'more, but not the marshmallowy part, just the graham cracker and chocolate.
Maybe creme brulee.
Yeah, a little creme brulee maybe. But like, it is so, I mean, it's dark and rich and I want to say dank even, where it has that, like, you get that. I've had distillate from smaller stills, and it does taste different than just that same mash bill distillate from a larger still. There's something about and it's not the cut points or anything. I think it's letting more congeners and esters and stuff over, whereas the bigger one has more surface area, therefore letting a lot more of that go down. I don't know. I'm not a biochemist or a scientist, but I think that's what it is, because I taste this similar profile in some of the other ones that I've tried, and it's almost like, and I've said this a couple of times probably in the past, but if you ever had, you go into those candy stores and they have all the candy lined up, and there's just candy everywhere. And then there's those little Coke bottles, and they're like wax Coke bottles. And then you break them open and you drink the Coke out. It's similar to the flavor of not only the wax, but the Coke, the fake Coke or whatever inside it. And it's not off-putting. I'm not saying it's a bad note, but it puts me back to a memory, which again, obviously, if you've been in whiskey for a minute, you know that it's all about recognition, right? What your brain recognizes as something. And when you can have especially when it's a good thought. When you have a good thought when it comes to whiskey, it always brings back that, and it always makes you feel very nostalgic about it. And that's what this is bringing me. And not only that, but that it's you guys' second barrel. That to me is, it's pretty special. And I didn't want to hype it up because obviously I want to be very transparent in the way that I'm reviewing everything and talking about everything, because if it sucks, I'm going to let you know. Believe me, I'm going to let you know if it sucks. And I'm going to let you know right now, it does not suck. There's some really cool qualities to this. I don't know. It's different than the other ones, but it's almost different. Like it's the cooler older brother. You know what I mean? Where you're like, I want to be like that guy one day, but then they're like, no, you're gonna do this and you'll be fine. You're gonna be the doctor. It's a little rebellious, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's our frontier. I mean, it's where we started, and I'm proud to put my first few barrels out there for sale, and I'm glowing inside that you have such a high opinion of the second barrel I ever made. When I say I had help, I was not hands off. I was in there working my ass off. But it was like those funky blue barrels that you see. That was my fermenters. Everything set up on concrete blocks. We were using like aquarium pumps to circulate things. It was insane, and filthy dirt, just stuff, just like blowing up, and breaking and stuff. I think part of the difference with that little batch too is that so you have the small still. Of course, you have the electric element, so you've taken the grains out, so that's a difference. The other side of it is the condenser. The condenser on my regular still is a shell and tube, fairly specific type of modern condenser. But the condenser on the Hillbilly still is just basically a freaking copper tube in a tube, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to pump cold water into that thing, and I don't care how much cold water you pump into it, the distillate's still coming out hot. And
absolutely,
that's got to affect the flavor profile, right?
Yeah.
So
yes,
I mean,
it does.
To us at the time, it was a problem. It was like, how do we fix this? But it just is what it is. And so that's going to affect it. So yeah, these 6 barrels will be unique, and when they're gone, they're gone. That's it. That'll be because like I feel like we did a reverse lineage of you guys' process. You know what I mean? To where it's like this, we're finishing with the whiskey you started with, which I love. I love that part. But like also this reminds me of like, and I'm not calling anybody out, but this reminds me of not as good. This is much better than their stuff, but some home distilled stuff I've had in the past, where it's like they are working on the same exact still setup that you're talking about with the same exact things. Not that I condone any of that because it's not fully legal in Texas yet. We're working on it, but not that I condone any of that, but this to me, obviously how to make your cuts and do all your things, and that's showing through in the distillate, and obviously sitting in a barrel for 7 years is going to mellow it out a little bit. But it's just really interesting to see not only where you guys have came from, but like where you guys are going in the future. And that leads me to my next question is, where do you see, because like you were saying earlier, there's kind of been a decline in, or quote unquote decline in whiskey sales. I know the third quarter last year of MGP was really low. Then, they're closing rick houses all over the place and stuff like that. Where do you see, especially in your field, where do you see the craft whiskey scene going within the next couple of years? Where do you see that? I'll give my 2 cents worth, but I'd be curious to have Zac answer that question.
Absolutely.
To start with.
Oh, you want me to go ahead and go?
Because you have a more global view of different whiskeys and what different people are doing.
I gotcha. Yeah. No matter what, you're still going to have people who are, who have some spare money, who want to go invest in, making their own whiskey label. That's going to exist one way, shape, or form. At least from what I see, and I get it, I'm a little more biased because I'm on the whiskey nerd side of things, but I do see more of a desire from at least what I hear in conversations on message boards, on conversations with other people, is that there's so many labels on the shelf right now. And there's more coming every single week, every single month. So But what I hear from it too, though, is that people are starting to ask more and more questions, which I think is great. Like you commented about the transparency aspect of it, and like even if you can't always disclose the distillery it came from, just disclosing what makes you you,
Right.
instead of just advertising, oh, it's like, this is, X number of years old. Here's the proof. Have a nice day. People want to know. I'm like, okay, well, what did you do? Oh, this was a hot still. What's that mean? It's like, where, you have this passion for it. Why? Where'd that come from? So I think as we're getting more into story seems to be developing a little bit more for people, the desire to know kind of what they're getting. People are stretching their dollars more and more over the last few years. So they're starting to have to dictate, okay, if I'm going to drop, because the entry for a good bottle of bourbon nowadays is, $40 to $70. So if I'm going to be dropping that on a bottle, I want to know more about it. So I think if people are willing to answer those questions in terms of a brand, whether it's from a source perspective or from their own distillate perspective, people are still falling in love with that. In terms of tourism, especially here in Kentucky, whiskey is always going to be a tourism aspect. That's a big driver here. So, if we can, us being open 7 days a week, we get a lot of people going either to or from Nashville. I see at least, on a busy Sunday, I'll see people from 13 or so different states on a Sunday.
Wow.
It's just because that's, we're accessible and we're there. So there's still people who want to explore, still people who want to experience something new. So, I'm not too afraid of the majority of people on the craft side, as long as, they didn't go in from the idea of let's just, go full board at the beginning and then not have anything to rely on if it gets a little bit tight. So.
Awesome.
I think from my perspective, the craft distilling movement needs to really take a lesson from the craft breweries. You have to be engaged with your customer. You have to have programming. You have to have offerings. You have to have the things that are interesting to come in. We're not a nighttime venue, so I don't do a lot of like music programming and that stuff. But we do a couple of festivals a year. But during the day, I work hard to tell people that you can do more than just come in and do a tour and tasting, right? You can have a drink. You can come here for socials. You can bring your friends here. You can do that sort of stuff. I think that's pretty much our, a big part of where we are now and what our future is. We can continue to try to connect with people. I think we're going to be in some, I don't know, some economic uncertainty for a minute. I don't think it's going to last very long. No. But I think people got to feel good again. And this started really like early last year. We kind of started to see a little bit of a drop off. But as I said earlier, I think our future is direct to consumer. Finding more and more ways to do that. Finding more and more ways to get our story out and create those relationships. I don't know. Retail, I think, will always be a factor for us in Kentucky and Tennessee, but I don't know what it will mean outside of this area. Maybe some certain. I've kind of taken this this concept. I call it deep, not wide. Like I'm looking for places where I can go. Like I would like to have like 2 good stores in Chicago, right? Right. 2 good stores in Houston, that kind of thing, as opposed to trying to get everywhere. And then that way. Right. Because, the reality is, as you know, there's a lot of stores out there, but there's just a few that sort of cater to that specific type of customer. And those are the places we want to be in as far as retail. So we're trying to focus as much as anything on who are those people. And it's going to be more boutique distributors who have a smaller reach, but who are reaching specific people. And hopefully distributors who are already very passionate about craft whiskey or craft beverages in general. Kind of goes hand in hand with that idea of the independent bottler, right? It's like the people who are in it because they're really passionate about it and they see a way to make it economically feasible, but they're following their passion first. And those are always the people I've been most attracted to.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I need to get you guys in contact with Adam and Nora over at Lost Lantern. That's what they do. They showcase independent spirits, and I feel like you guys would fit right in there. with them. Not that they'll listen to me. What do I know? But
But
I need to
get a distributor, or they're a restaurant.
No, they're an independent bottler.
Oh, independent bottlers. Yeah, we'd love to talk to folks like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And even if they could showcase like one of your cool barrels, or maybe like you were talking about doing a Kentucky blend of like some smaller craft distilleries going together and making a cool blend. Anyway, that's future notes. Okay, so before we get out here, why don't you guys both give me your when you're not drinking Dueling Ground, what are you drinking?
And I'll let Marc start that one. I've got to think about it.
Oh no, Zach, you have way more palate. I'm a one note dude, guys. I hate to tell you this. I like what I make. I drink what I make. I buy a few other things, but outside of my regular stuff, Old Forester 100. Okay. Easy, simple, stock stuff. I love it. Make Manhattans with it. If I'm off on vacation, I need to buy a bottle. That's what I look for.
Okay. I was going to say you're very big on a Manhattan at the distillery too. So
I'm a Manhattan guy. Yeah, that's my thing. It's got to be the good. It's got to be the good vermouth. It's got to be the Italian vermouth. None of this. Oh yeah, this crap you get. It's got to be the Kochi or something like that. Yeah. And Aztec. So I'll give you my Manhattan recipe. So it's the bourbon, Kochi, and then the secret is Aztec chocolate bitters. Ooh. And black walnut bitters.
Oh, I like that.
And a brandy soaked cherry.
Ooh, okay.
Little orange peel. Mm-hmm. That's like a candy bar. I can only drink one of them though. If I drink any more than one, it's just too sweet. But that's my dessert of choice. I buy everybody at the place, who works for me, one drink at the end of their shift, right? So everybody has their specifics, and that's always mine.
Awesome.
But Zach, you have a much broader palate than I do.
Yeah. When I want to just sit down, relax, like kind of envelop with a whiskey that's not our own, because I've been drinking along with you all tonight, going through our lineup. But I tend to go for the Scotch route, just because I want to be able to have something that's really unique. I love all the bourbon distilleries. I visit easily 3 different bourbon distilleries a month, just because I love it around here in Kentucky. I love all the people on our craft side, especially down here on the southern end. So for anybody who comes to Kentucky, yes, go to the big guys. You're going to have a great time, but go find the craft ones. You're going to, odds are, be given a tour by someone who's actually making it. They're going to show you everything, answer all the questions. They'll get as nerdy as you want. It's a great time. Love it. On the Scotch side, like that's where, that's one of my ways to decompress and I guess kind of get outside of bourbon a little bit. So I do like a good smoky Scotch, but I don't have to go overly smoky. So if there's a minimally peated Bunnahabhain, that's one that I absolutely gravitate to. Obviously, it's hard to go wrong with Campbelltown. But yeah, so just something that gets me a little bit more of a variety, I'll go for. I'm attracted to weird stuff. So anything that if you tell me they did something, some weird finish or some unique fermentation, or this barrel was, buried underneath a bridge or something for 5 years, I'm like, I'll go for it. So.
Give me some of that.
And that's why you're here. And that's why you're here.
All right. You come to our place. We say we're the closest Kentucky distillery to Nashville, coming up I-65.
Right.
So we get a lot of people coming up from Nashville, and it's just there's only 4 people that work full time inside the building. So you are taking a tour with me, or the guy who runs my tasting room, who was my assistant in the back for years before he got to put on clean clothes and be up front, or the master distiller or his assistant. That's it. That's it. Somebody's, and that's, I think, the beauty of the crafts world is that we are hands-on people, and it's not like, you go to some. Again, the bigger guys are great, and we love the bigger guys because they bring the people, right? We love.
Yes, absolutely.
Not saying anything bad against any of that. But yeah, get out and kick some tires and go to other places, and add a day to your day and go, or 2 days, and go do the Western Loop and pick up the 6 of us that kind of are over here. Shoot out to And there's getting to be more going east now too. And I look to see more. And there's now a moonshine trail that brings that's really well organized and has and moves further east. The cool thing, one of the coolest things about our trails is you get to see the state of Kentucky, and you have a mission as you're doing. You know what I mean? It's like if you follow the trail, you're going to see the whole freaking state, and you're going to see the mountains, and you're going to see the cornfields, and you're going to see the whole thing. And it's a beautiful state. It's gorgeous, and you get to see that. And I think that's one of the coolest things about the trail that people don't realize is you're not just going to go see distilleries. You're going to see an amazing state all together.
And unlike the Texas Whiskey Trail, you can do it in a day.
You can't do it. Yeah, so you can't do the Kentucky Bourbon in a day.
No, come on.
You'd be dead if you
come on.
But you might be able to charter a van on a driver in maybe a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's like over 50 or 60 of us now on the trail.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
There's damn near 100 of us in the state. You know, so it's there's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot to see. That's awesome. I appreciate you guys so much for hanging out with me. So before we go ahead and tell me any of your social links and any of those things y'all guys want us to go, and I will have them all pinned down below as always. Go ahead and give us all those, and if you want people to email you or text you or whatever.
Yeah. I'll do the distillery real quick, and then I'll let Zach do his socials. So the easiest entree for us is duelinggroundsdistillery.com. Right, that's where we are. But we have Facebook, we have Instagram, and we have TikTok. Believe it or not, we have TikTok. I don't do the TikTok. Somebody else does the TikTok. Actually, somebody else does all of that stuff. But we have kind of all the normal channels that you can kind of tune into us by. We have online booking where you can go to our site and book a tour. And like I said, we're working hard to expand our online offerings. But if you're in a state, you're curious, I think via Sealbox, we hit like 43 states. So we more than likely probably get you a bottle if you're looking to get one.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, of course. In addition, the nice benefit of working at the distillery is that we get to make a lot of cocktails. So I run a Facebook and Instagram page called Z Smith Whiskey and Mixology. Made it very hard to search for in the naming there, but it's hard to change it now. But with that, we'll post generally 2 cocktails a week that are most of the time are featured at the distillery itself. So you'll get recipes and instructions there, and of course, history of spirits posts if you want to get more nerdy about not just whiskey but all spirits. That's available on those pages as well. So yeah.
Awesome. And I know you guys already know this, but I already post all of Zach's stuff. So, I mean, you can go to his site if you want and go give him a follow, but he's getting posted by me all the time. So I really appreciate you guys, Marc and Zac, for coming on here and hanging out with me. And it's been a great time. And I'm going to save the rest of one of those samples. I'm not going to tell you which one just yet to do a deep dive on when this episode gets released. So be on the lookout for that too. But y'all be good. I appreciate all of you for being here. And until next time, keep your spirits up.